Hey class, I told you early this week I would do a vlog for you, and I just wanted to address a couple things that I noticed in your posts for assignment number 2. So the first thing that I noticed is there's a little bit of difficulty with understanding how to use the research. It's very similar to how you used your interviews. Rather than just giving the raw data of what people said and exactly what their answers were, I asked you to process it a little bit and to tell part of their story and to use it somewhat anecdotally. I'm asking you to do the same thing with your research. A number of you just took quotes out and put them right into your paragraphs. And there was a big disconnect with what you had written previously and then this quote and then how you ended the paragraph. So what I want to talk about today are the 3 different ways that you can use research, or quotes essentially, in your paper. So there are 3 different ways. The first way is to directly quote something. So if you have a small piece of information, a small quote, should not exceed 3 typed lines in a paper, and the wording is so perfect that you cannot say it better yourself, and it exactly expresses what you want to say. And there's no jargon in it. Jargon is language that's directly connected to a field. It's almost like a secret language. You have to be in the field to understand the way terms are used. If there's no jargon in it, and it's exactly what you want it to say, short, to the point, feel free to directly quote. In that case, you would use quotation marks. You would open it with a framing the quote. You would say, in an article in the New York Times that covered why children do not like to be outside, psychologists so-and-so said, and then give the information. And then follow it up with how that connects to what you're doing in the paragraph. The second option is close. It's paraphrase. If there is language that feels uncomfortable, if you just quoted it, your paragraph would not flow, then you paraphrase the information. You put it into your own words. You take the same basic idea and you just reword it so that it's clearer for your reader. This is very helpful if you have jargon, or if you have maybe a lot of clauses or unnecessary things in a quote, something that just makes it simpler for your reader to process and easier for it to flow in your paper. The third way that you can introduce research into your paper is to summarize it. So by summarize it, I don't mean summarize the article. If you have a paragraph of information or a couple paragraphs of information, maybe a study was done, rather than give the details of the study with, equations that were used or specific numbers of what was in the control group and what was in the experimental group, summarize the key points that are significant to what you're trying to show. So if you want to say that a research, let's say a scientist in the University of Columbia was curious about how violent video games actually affected violent behaviors in children, and he did a study to see how this worked. And this is what he did essentially. He asked students a number of questions, or he had them play this little game, and then he had them take a test, or then he had them get into a fake altercation, or whatever it is. Give that information and then share the conclusion. But don't say, he took 16 students, and out of those 16 students, 4 of them did this, and 4 of them did that, and 4 of them did that, and out of that, that's just way too much information. We can't follow it. You've lost your reader, and your job as the researcher is to process the information. You read the article, you decide how you're going to use it, how it supports your thesis statement, and then you pick the best mode to share it with your audience and to connect it to everything else that's going on in your paper and in your paragraph. What I found in some of the assignment 2s, and I just kept giving the same comment, which is why I feel the need to make a small video about it, is I was reading something that made a lot of sense, and then all of a sudden the research entered, and you lost me, because it was just quotes that felt disconnected. They had one person actually put an equation, like a math equation, into the essay. I can't follow that. It's not that kind of essay. If you were doing a truly scientific study about this topic and this thing, then it may be necessary. And different fields require different kinds of writing. And maybe you're in a field where you're used to a very technical writing, where these things are necessary because it's part of the jargon, it's part of the language, it's part of the process of your field. But in a kind of paper like this, where I'm asking you to take a concept and break it into its parts, to explore it, to analyze it, it is not necessary to give that level of detail with the articles that you read. So I want to encourage you to really be thoughtful about how you use your research, quote, paraphrase, summarize. I want to let you know that whichever one you choose to do must be accompanied by an in-text citation. There are 2 ways you can do an in-text citation. The first way, parenthetical, right after the quote, you close with quotation marks, you open parentheses, last name of the author. If a page number is applicable, page number, close parentheses, period. That's one way to do it. The other way to do it is with a signal phrase. Introduce the quote as being said by so-and-so in this article. As long as the author's name is in that signal phrase, you don't also need to put it at the end of the parentheses. If there's a page number, you can still put that. But to be honest, what I'm seeing, we're working a lot with news sources. There aren't page numbers. It's mostly HTML. If you have a magazine, though, where you got, a PDF scanned page, then yes, please include the page number. But like I said, I did not really see that that was necessary in the majority of what you were giving me. So I want to encourage you to be thoughtful in how you use research, to cite it appropriately, to introduce it meaningfully, to process it in a fair way, and to be aware of how your paragraphs flow. I hope this is helpful. Happy writing and happy Thanksgiving.